Oghale Mafuru is a seasoned brand and marketing journalist with over a decade of experience shaping narratives in Nigeria's media and communications landscape. As the publisher of Brand Collosus, she leads one of Africa's emerging platforms, spotlighting bold ideas, industry insights, and voices driving marketing and brand innovation across the continent. With a strong editorial background, Oghale has covered and contributed to the evolution of the marketing and advertising industry through in-depth reporting, interviews, and commentary. Her work consistently bridges the gap between media and brand strategy, offering informed perspectives that challenge, inspire, and educate. A skilled moderator and curator of thought leadership spaces, Oghale is known for facilitating engaging conversations with industry leaders, pushing the boundaries of how African brands are seen and heard. Through Brand Collosus, she continues to champion creativity, excellence, and the rising influence of African storytellers in the global brand economy. Her mission remains clear: to amplify marketing voices, shape meaningful discourse, and drive the visibility of African excellence in branding and communication.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are connecting with us from. I'd like to welcome you to Brand and Tech Series, April edition, where we have interactions around marketing and everything related to marketing. It is going to be an interesting time as we will be looking at a very interesting topic, very germane one, that has to do with marketing in an attention-scarce world. I mean, attention is the new currency when it comes to marketing communication and how we engage with the consumer. We have realized that the attention span is dwindling, and it behoves on marketing professionals to explore ways they can, sustain the attention of consumers, even in their content creation and all. Interestingly, we have very remarkable professionals from across the world who have wealth of experience in creating captivating content that engage consumers, representing brands, of course. And I would also like to recognize the presence of Davies. We have Mrs. Tolulope Medem, and we have Oyindamola Fakile and Aizehi Itua. And together they will be giving us some very deep perspective into what the subject really is. And like I said, it is marketing in an attention-scarce world. As earlier stated, attention is now, being reduced. The consumer do not have that levity of time to spend in a content. So I'd be also marketing professionals to figure out how they can, better communicate their messages in a way that the consumer gets it, gets the meaning, and also respond in the needed way. So I would like to invite Aizehi, who would give us a deeper perspective on what this platform really entails. Like I said, it's about marketing and everything related to marketing. So I would like to invite him. Aizehi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Oghale. That was a very smooth introduction. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me, and please let us know where you're joining us from all around the world. I'm excited to be here with you. Good afternoon, and thank you once again for joining us. So when we started the Brand and Tech series, the goal was very simple: to create a space where meaningful conversations about the evolving relationship between brands, people, and platforms could happen. Basically, conversations that are not just insightful, but practical and relevant for the times that we are in today. And previous editions have had the likes of brand rock stars like Rob Mayerson, Sonny Bonnell, and Ashley Moto, all from the US. We've had the Tara Lafonguch and Ants Patel, UK and US, guys from all over the world literally talking about brand conversations and tech-related conversations like the AIs and the likes. And a few weeks ago, I shared a thought on LinkedIn that really resonated with many of the professionals. It was about attention being the new intent, basically. It was a rhetorical question, basically, and then I tried to see the integration between attention and intent as both leading and lagging metrics for marketing as it is, and considering how scarce it is. So that idea basically came from observing how brands, today are not just competing for market share, we're competing for, share of mind, share of culture, as the case of maybe, which would obviously result in share of wallet over time. So, and in this age, we see a very surplus economy, endless pros and endless tabs, as well as fleeting impressions going in. So, attention is not more valuable and very, very volatile, right, in marketing. And that's why we're here today. I have people like consider marketing guns. And for those joining us everywhere, all part of the world, that's the Yoruba for elders, right? People that really respect in marketing and brand. And it's a privilege to be in the presence here. So we didn't just select this panel list based on their names, but they've been carefully selected because they are the types that have actually crafted marketing as we know it from Africa and the UK. So we want our marketing professionals to actually rethink how we show up and how we design our connection, ensuring that it's meaningful across board. I wouldn't want to go too deep into this conversation, but I hope the conversations today will challenge us, challenge all of our ideas, our assumptions, and sharpen our perspective as we go forward. Let's get to it. Thank you so much, Oghale. Yeah.
Thank you, Aizehi, for that. I think that just set the tone for today's conversation and really heightens the excitement that we're expecting to get out of it. The question really is about attention, really, and the consumers are, changing. Their behavior is changing. Everything about them is changing. The marketing place is also evolving. I would like to ask the first question, which will be directed to Mrs. Tolulope Medem, who happens to really have a direct engagement with the consumer by way of the work that she does. She currently sits as the president of the Experiential Marketers Association of Nigeria, involving in experiential marketing that has direct, So the question is, what is the biggest challenge markets face today when it comes to earning and holding consumer attention?
Hi, Ogara. Thank you very much. And Oghale, I always make that mistake. Thank you very much. And Aizehi, thank you. And Oyindamola and Matt, it's a pleasure being on the same panel with you guys. Now, one of the things that has been a major challenge, especially with facing and holding consumer attention, has been the sheer volume of noise. And what's that noise? There's a lot of content, there's a lot of stimuli, and the consumer every day is being exposed to all of it. And it's not only here in Nigeria, I mean, it's a worldwide phenomenon. And you have them being bombarded from every angle, especially with the AI now. Once you think something, you begin to see it. So from every angle, you have digital ads, you have social media, you have the radio, you have strict activations. My people were out earlier today and they came in and I was like, so person is running activation, and it's all over. So you're asking yourself, the consumer attention is fragmented. So where is his loyalty? And you find out with so much happening, the loyalty and the attention span is very fleeting. I understand that the attention span nowadays is it 8 seconds or is it 8 minutes? I think it's 8 seconds. So if it's 8 seconds, the challenge that every marketer is facing now is relevance. How do you remain relevant to the consumer? And for me, the thought is, if your message does not immediately speak to a need, an emotion, or something that is an aspiration for the consumer within those 8 seconds, then you have lost them, and obviously they will ignore you. And here, especially in Nigeria, where the cultural nuances, the language you speak, and regional sentiments play a huge role for us. If you miss those marks with your consumer, then you become very invisible. I didn't say invisible, I said very invisible So I think for me, that's one of the biggest challenges, your ability to remain relevant and to actually be able to connect immediately within the fleeting attention span. That's it. Okay, can you hear me?
All right, thank you so much, Ma. I would like to direct the same question to Oyindamola. Given the fact that you are a creative person, you've worked across different brands, and you have been at the forefront of creating strategy that works for brands, how would you respond to a question like that? That what is the biggest challenge the marketers are facing in regards to earning and retaining consumer attention?
Thank you so much, Oghale. Thank you, Aizehi. Such a privilege to be here. I'm glad to be here with you, Matt and Tolulope. And that question is such a very palpable question. The reason why I say palpable is because, I would say that it's an issue that we would continue to face, right? Because there's always that rush, there's always that competition, So back here, at the kitchen, we call it the creative kitchen. There's usually the whole rush from marketing executives tell you that, oh, there's this brand that's just released this TVC, and we want you to do a TVC to counter that TVC. And we're like, but hold on, you still have some products and platforms that you're trying to churn out. Why don't you wait a bit, right? But I think that finding the balance is making sure that, you make the client see reason, right? To understand that, look, it's not about saying what A and B is saying. I'll give an example using a telco brand that I worked on, right? There was a time some humorous set of ads were released in the airspace, and this very beautiful power brand, was a bit threatened. And the brief had come to the unit to say, look, we also want to do humorous ads. But what we did as a team was to sit them down to say, okay, what exactly is your archetype as a brand? Right? Your archetype is you are more of the hero archetype, right? You are more of the one that, comes out with communication that shows people that, look, this brand has my back, right? So you don't want to now switch to a jester archetype just because competition, is rolling out some communication and it looks like the audience are really licking it up, right? And what happened was, they listened to us and maintained that line of communication that they were already known for, right? Went more deep into other platforms that would get them share of attention, share of eyes, and that sort of sorted it, right? But I would say that it's a necessary evil, and our role as professionals is to always make the client see reason, make them see strategy, to make them understand that, look, whatever you put out there is your identity, and you don't want to be schizophrenic in how you display that. So it's a constant job, right, that we have, right? We'll keep at it.
In this constant job, something that should keep us awake. I'd like to hear your thought, Matt.
Well, again, I want to say thank you for having me here, and it's an honor to be on the panel with the esteemed guests that we've got. Couple of things. I agree with what the others have said, but I think what we're talking about here is something that's become known in marketing circles as brand salience, which basically means, are you in somebody's mind at the point when they're looking to purchase, and 100% that you need to be in there in a relevant way that's either going to solve their problem or it's going to engage with them in some way that they think that they will become better off obtaining something from your brand. So brand salience is important, but of course there's only 5% typically of anyone that's going to be in the market to buy of your target audience at any one time. So you still have to be relevant to the other 95%. You still need them in there. You still need to be speaking to them, because at some point they're going to drop into that 5% and then they're going to be ready to buy. So you need to be already there. If you just wait for the people that are in buying mode, you're going to lose out, because there's other brands competing for the 95%. So that's my first thought. I think that's one of the biggest challenges is how do you stay relevant to people who perhaps are not even in the mode for buying at that moment, but might be in the future. Now, to do that, and maybe we'll come on to some ideas around that in a minute, but to do that, it seems to me that this is all about a value exchange. Like, why should somebody give your brand attention? What are they going to get out of it? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. If you're constantly advertising, pushing product, that isn't adding any value to them if they're not ready to buy there and then. If they're maybe going to be buying in a year's time, then it's going to be complete. They're just going to swipe on, right? They're going to swipe on. So you need to think about, okay, even if somebody's not quite ready to buy just at this moment, what value can I give them in order for that to hold their attention, in order to stay in their mind so that they see my brand as being relevant, so that when they are ready to buy, that's when we come in. But I actually think that that is the kind of the marketing challenge. But the real challenge that I see a lot of, and I don't know what the other guests think about this, is I actually kind of see the real challenge as companies having an internal misalignment challenge. And what I mean by that is that the marketing manager or director or whoever's in charge of building the kind of the communications, they're disconnected to the rest of the organization. There is no overarching brand strategy which glues everything together. And therefore, what that means is that when the marketing manager kind of comes to try and obtain budget or obtain an understanding of where the business will be in 5 years' time, to build that long-term salience with the 95%, it perhaps isn't there. And so I could talk a long time about how brand strategy should bring alignment around all component parts of the organization. But that's the bit that I actually see is the biggest challenge for marketeers. There is no strategy that's signed off at the highest level, and therefore they kind of are squidged down into a short-term thinking to try and generate leads and then conversions, which is relevant, don't get me wrong, but as I said, the 95% are not buying right now, so we need to have that longer-term understanding. So anyway, I've probably waffled on too much, but that's my initial kind of thinking on the question. So thank you.
I like the perspective you brought into it, the aspect of the value exchange. I think that is really what is very topmost for most consumers, really. When you even look at the wave of the social media and how consumers are latching onto it, you realize that there are different things that consumers really go onto social media to derive in terms of entertainment, all sorts. And so you need to ensure that whatever you're putting out there has some kind of value in terms of exchange for quality time, because we're speaking about attention. So if a consumer would have to spend some time on your content to get your message, then there should be some level of value derived from it. So yeah, thank you very much for that aspect you brought in. But I also like to ask you this question, Matt. If we strip everything else down, platform, tools, and budget, what remains the most critical, factor for winning attention? I understand you've mentioned value exchange, and there are several other things, but when you consider tools, platforms, budget, what do you think would, stand out as a major, propeller for sustaining consumer attention?
Well, I'm going to defer to my kind of previous comment around strategy, right? So just think about this. What makes a good brand strategy, in my view, is having a very, very clear understanding of your positioning in the market. In other words, who is your target? And when you show up to talk to them, what is it that you stand for? What is it that you're saying to them? And what is it that you're offering to them, which kind of blows the competition out of the water, right? There's a beautiful statement that I learned from a thinker called Marty Neumeier, who I know some of the panelists will probably know. He wrote a few really cool books like The Brand Gap, for example. Anyway, he's a personal mentor of mine, and he has this thing called the onlyness statement. And it's kind of like the pinnacle of all positioning statements. I mainly use this in my work as a consultant internally with a team, but it basically goes like this. Our brand is the only blank that blanks. And you have to fill in the blanks, right? And it basically challenges a company, not just the marketing team. And this goes back to what I'm saying about brand building properly. Yes, it is a marketing challenge, but really marketing doesn't sit on its own. It links to the rest of the company. So you need to understand what product you're creating in order for that to be highly relevant, useful, exciting, and valuable to the consumer. And so you need to know what it is the consumer needs and wants and who they are. And you've got to understand your offer and how that adds value to them. Once you have that clear positioning and understanding, and you know what sets you apart from the competition, then you have a very, very clear strategy in order to kind of move that thinking forwards in whatever way is relevant to your brand and business. So my view in relation to, if we strip everything back, from all the tactical platforms, from the tools, all the budgets that we need, is that the thing that is going to move the dial is good thinking, is clever thinking around your strategy and an alignment of the whole company around that. Once you've got that, you can then step in to how can we execute this with the resources that we've got in a powerful and effective way. And, perhaps we can talk about, how you might do that later, but that's kind of my initial response.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mrs. Medem this question. In experiential campaign, how do you balance grabbing attention with creating long-lasting emotional engagement?
Okay, so the good thing about it is, at the end of the day, we're all probably saying the same thing. And Mark has actually struck it. And I will use this. This is one thing I usually say when I'm talking to people, when we're coming up with strategies, like Mark said, attention is the spark. So you get their attention. But then what is the fire that makes them burn is the engagement. So with every activity that you have, you first of all have to get their attention, where you get the spark, and then you are able to engage them. Because with that fire now, you want to keep it burning. And how do you want to keep it burning? So for us in experiential marketing, is getting their attention and then ensuring that after you've gotten that spark, you are able to keep the fire burning. So you now take it back into having developed the strategy and then getting the human insight and then the nuances that actually make people tick. So for instance, using an example, I ran an activity years ago. I was heavily pregnant, and it was a campaign for an alcoholic brand. And we had to have this one of the Nigerian celebrities who used to ride a bike then, and sometimes he could be volatile. And it was, like I said, an alcoholic brand. It was around area boys who are it was around a beach area. And I had gotten to connect with these boys in the course of planning for this activity, and they were all looking forward to it. And then the bike guy, the black bike celebrity, kind of got volatile, and he brought out this sword. And I remember all the boys coming and act around me, and they kept on shouting, "Mama, mama, 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 mama." And that for me has been a pregnant moment in running experiential campaigns, because at this point you realize that they had connected with you, thereby they had connected with the brand that you were actually selling or with the brand that you were representing. And that way you had actually kind of like struck something in their mind which was going to engage them moving forward. Now, before that had happened, strategies had engaged with them, and that was why they had come into this space to actually engage with us on this particular activity. So for us, you have the human insight. That's what I use in addition to the strategy that Matt had talked about. So what makes them tick? What connects with the consumer? How does it feel? It's something I say all the time, whether for brands, whether for human beings, around you, how do you make the people around you feel? And that's something that we take into communication, especially when we're creating experiences. So for me, the real value then comes at creating experiential experiences ensures that the consumers feel something, and then it creates for them a memory, not a moment. So it's a memory that stays with them after that activity has been done. So for me, that is balancing those attention grabbing moments and creating long-term engagement. Because in the immediate, yes, you get their attention, but how do they get to engage and connect with the brand after that activity? You must have been able to create experiences that connect with them such that they can take it away outside of that activity, but tied to the strategy that Matt people and Oyin's people create. So it's actually a 360 degrees loop. And we all actually must work together to ensure that we build a lasting impression for the consumer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, ma'am. For Aizehi, this question goes to you. So you've championed the idea of sorry, I beg your pardon. The idea of intentional marketing. How does this translate into strategies that retain attention beyond the first impression?
I think at this point I'll be sounding like a broken record. Literally reiterating what Oyindamola, Matt, and Tolulope have said. And I've been very particular about that. I got so particular that I had to make that my sign off on every of my posts, keep being intentional. And literally what that means, it has a longer, but then let's leave it at that, keep being intentional. So it literally means being deliberate. Marketing, especially for us at EXMAN, is we see marketing as a game, and not as a game just to entertain. It's literally speaking to the strategies that are involved in creating these experiences for the consumers, an enjoyable one at that for the consumers. It speaks to the players, it speaks to the tactics that then comes to life, in the experiences that we see. And so championing intentional marketing is first off being intentional about how you stay relevant in the minds of these consumers, how you get them to, like Tolulope said, triggering the spark and sustaining that spark throughout the consumer's journey. It's understanding clearly deep insights beyond what a ChatGPT in quote would give to you. Deep insights right from the streets, beyond the desktop research, knowing how they think, knowing what pain points they have, what their goals are, what their aspirations are, thoroughly, and developing campaigns that really speaks to this intentionally throughout the journey. How do you intentionally want to make them feel when they get to know you? How do you want to make them experience your brand when they are considering your brand against their current do, or your consumers, or source the alternatives to what they currently use in solving that said problem that you're preferring as a value, as it is. So being intentional across board, and after they experience the product, how do you also want them to feel? Transferring them from being, latent to even becoming brand loyalists and ambassadors of your brand over time. So this is, I think, one thing that brands need to know. And one approach I feel is going brand first. That idea, my fear is that idea is dying. The marketing professionals, especially in the C-suites, are beginning to lose their voices. And it's high time we actually stood up. I've written a piece about that before. I like to document a lot. Yeah. So it's very essential that we actually stand up, and we know that we are the eyes of the consumers from product ideation to even after sales. We should be able to stand there and go brand first with it, and that's you speaking intentional marketing as it is. Thank you.
Approach creativity in an era where audiences are increasingly distracted and hard to impress?
Sorry, Oghale, was that question for me? I lost audio for a bit. Okay. Sorry, can you take it again, please?
All right. So how do you approach creativity in an era where audiences are increasingly distracted and hard to impress?
Beautiful question. I think, math sort of touched on one thing I think is very crucial as marketing people, the need to culture spot, right? So trend spotting and culture spotting. We need to always stay ahead of the consumers. We need to look at their regular day in life, look at their journey, the consumer journey, and be able to forecast, more like soothsayers. I like to use analogies a lot, right? We need to sit down, look at every piece that matters to this consumer, right? And then say, okay, what exactly would matter to him or her in 2 years' time, or just next month or next week, right? And that gives us the what I'll call gives you that gives you a lot of time in the game, right? To it gives you like some it gives you some hours or some days into ahead of competition, right? And then there's also the bit of listening more than scripting experiences. I think Isaiah touched on it beautifully well when he mentioned that look, there's a lot of desktop research that goes on, right? There's a lot of just assume, at times we sell this product, we sell this platform because we sit down and we just believe that we know that this is what consumer wants to hear, right? But if we go out there and we feel the pulse of the people, we really get to understand what matters to them, then we can better sell to them. Then we can better capture their attention. Then we can better know that, okay, you know what? We shouldn't even place this advertising on TV. It should be on WhatsApp. It should be on Telegram, right? Because this is the kind of space that these people love to engage in. I like to tell stories a lot. I'll tell the story of a brand. My guys, my copywriters and I were brainstorming on something, and just really looking at the habits of the consumer, when we want to put together TVC stories. And one thing that we have set on to do is to say, look, rather than writing a TVC script and saying this is just the TVC script and that's it, we need to know what shape and format, right, and write ahead for it that TVC script will carry when it is the premiership, for example, so that when the ad pops up during halftime, people don't boo us and show us off, right? So it's just anticipating what your consumer would like, what they would feel in certain scenarios across different shapes and shades of their life and experience, and then creating for those moments, right? It shouldn't just be a push product. We just want to sell, we just want you to buy. They just would not listen to us anymore, right? So it is when you do that and you craft it intentionally with them in mind, they will start to vibe with that. Another thing to also look at is, apart from selling products, apart from pushing product, nobody would really listen to you when they know that you're just all about getting into their purses, right? But if you craft your strategy, right, in such a way that you have your product here and then you have platforms here, and you're just doing a nice balance with that, right? There's product and there's platform. I think Matt also touched on that earlier, right? Then they know that, look, yes, they're asking me to part away with some nice naira, right? But I've been able to use this platform to connect with this study opportunity, or I've been able to use this platform to know, how to texturize my hair without using harmful chemicals. So I would buy their relaxers, right? Or I'll buy their conditioners, right? So there just needs to be something in it for them. And there's something that my mentor, would always say. He says, you need to ask yourself, why should your consumer care, right? When you're putting together your TVCs, putting together your radio ads, putting together your strategy, like Tolulope mentioned, you need to ask, why should they care? Why should they matter to them? Not just stay in our, AC dub offices and crafting solutions that just look nice, look like it's going to win us awards, but we are not really thinking them, right? And crafting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Be intentional about your messages and when you craft them, and ensure that the consumer is at the core of your strategy direction. Thank you so much. We will be commencing on the break pretty soon. I hope we're ready to commence that break. Mr. Itua. Are we good to go? All right, so let's take a break and then we'll continue afterwards. Thank you.
Well, I know you read of that statement, never judge a book by its cover. Well, in the media production business, you will always be judged by the cover. So Rough Productions, we have to reach out to anyone company to give us that cover in which our clients could look through and see the quality of our work. And they came through very quickly and with a job well done, with the brand designs, the logos, the BIs, the websites they did for us, and truly it's a cover that when men see, they judge right and what is
So you're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are currently having the Brand and Tech series, talking on the topic marketing in an attention-scarce world. And the conversation has been very interesting, speaking about how we can retain and sustain the attention of consumers, given the fact that we are in an era where the consumer have so many contents to consume in a short time. And so that makes marketers to be on their toes to ensure that they create and craft messages that get the attention, sustaining, and make the consumer take the desired action. And the high point of the conversation so far is about how we can leverage brand strategy within our organizations, create a very uniformed, strategic direction that runs through the entire messaging that emanates from our organizations concerning our brands, and how we can craft messages that clearly speaks to the needs and aspirations of our consumers, and how we can ensure that there is adequate value exchange. If a consumer would have to spend some time on your content, then there should be some level of exchange that ties to the consumer's aspirations and needs. So it has been very interesting, and we're moving on to the next session of this conversation. And the question that I have next is directed to Matt. And the question is, how does clarity in brand strategy, because I know you spoke about brand strategy previously, but we want you to give some kind of clarity regarding that and how it supports long-term consumer attention and loyalty. Can you throw more light to that and how that can enhance, sustenance of the consumer attention and, of course, brand loyalty?
Yeah. So if you have a good strategy, it means that really you have a good plan. Okay, you have a good understanding of who you're trying to target, of how you want to position your brand in front of them that's going to differentiate you in a highly valuable way from other competitors that are out there. And it means that you therefore understand what you are and what you're not. And strategy really is all about decision making. Okay, so if you haven't got a good strategy, you're going to make poor decisions, because and I see this a lot with marketeers, because they haven't got that alignment that I talked about. So they're kind of quite sort of knee-jerk reactions, responding to lots of stuff, trying to put out lots of things for quick wins, and that long-term thinking isn't there. They haven't got that focus. So that's how a good strategy brings and helps you build that customer attention and loyalty, because it means the communications you're going to put out, the experiences that you're going to put out and design, and the products and the offerings you're going to put out are going to be focused. They're going to be focused on a particular consumer with a particular challenge or need. And therefore, you can ensure your advertising, your marketing, your communications shows up in a highly relevant way. The other thing that it does is, if you do it right, is that you'll be recognized. Like I said at the start, sometimes you're marketing to your segmentation of the market. 95% of them are not going to be ready to buy at the moment that you push that communication out. So what you need to do is be recognized, so that when they do fall into that 5% that are looking to buy, at that point, your brand is in their mind as the one that's going to solve the problem, as the one that means the most to them, as the one that gets them excited because they've watched your TikTok video, whatever it might be, and they found it super interesting. So, like, for example, there's a brand that I've been looking at recently. It's called Moose Backpacks, and it's spelled MOUS Backpacks. I think they're a UK-based company, so forgive me for all of you across the world that are not in the UK, but have a look at them. But one of the interesting things is that they have a strategy around creating waterproof, highly robust backpacks for the modern kind of person who wants to look trendy whilst wearing them, right? Very simple concept, but what's really interesting is the way they've taken it from a brand perspective. So their kind of big idea is to live without limits, which of course is relevant to the product. And the way that they're getting attention is they're like putting very expensive laptops into these backpacks and doing insane stunts, like throwing them off of a hot air balloon, thousands of feet up in the air, or throwing them off a very high building, and then seeing what happens to the product inside that they're trying to protect. and it's watchable, it's interesting, and they've got a whole team, and you know, when the backpack lands, everyone's like, whoa, and then they open it up as it's smashed or not, and it's kind of entertaining, it's interesting, it's exciting. But here's the important thing: it's relevant to the product, and it's relevant to the challenge and the problem that their consumers face. And therefore, even though, for example, I'm not in the market right now to buy a backpack that's trendy and robust, but at some point I will be. And when I am entering that market, I will be thinking about their product because of their entertaining but relevant content that they've shared. And that comes from a good strategy.
Relevance. Thank you so much for that perspective you brought into the conversation. The next question is to Mrs. Tolulope Medem. And the question is, you previously talked about creating memorable experience for the consumer. And given the work that you do as an experiential marketer, that's very apt. But the next question would be, do you believe there is still a place for large-scale brand activation in a world where consumers crave shorter digital-first content?
Yes, definitely. I mean, most definitely. Well, I mean, something that's just mentioned now is it might not be large scale, but it's an activation. So now imagine a brand activation of a large magnitude that connects to the consumer at a point where he actually needs it. Because regardless, anything that we do at the end of the day, we remember that marketing principles do not change. What then happens is, over the years, we're devising ways, coming up with strategies, coming up with creative ideas that would cut across the distractions. Years ago in Insight Then, we used to talk about cutting through the clutter. And this was, I mean, years ago. And even today, we're still cutting through the noise. But yes, your question, going back to your question, absolutely. But cutting across or these activities would have to come with some level of purpose, and they must be strategy driven. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. Years ago, for instance, even today is an activity. When I was thinking through today, I thought to myself, come to think of it, what is an activity on a large scale that would still be relevant even today? And I remembered years ago the Dunhill Symphony of Fire that we had done that cut through a whole line of strategy. And the red thread in that was pretty much the fact that the Dunhill brand then was it was positioned in Nigeria as a cigarette for aficionados. It was a luxury brand and all of that. And to create an activity for that luxury brand, the idea was to, first of all, right from the invites were curated as specific invites and as passports that were sent out to the guest. And the guest was obviously high net worth individuals, celebrities, and the kind of people that you envision would be aspirational for people that are also upcoming aficionados. And then it was passports that were created in a way where, you know, when you're getting a second passport, especially in Nigeria, where there's a whole lot of song and dance around it. And the idea behind that was a lot of attention and communication was driven around it to give you some level of FOMO. And then imagine the actual activity was on a badge that was created on water. And then it was called Symphony of Fire, like I said. And there was a whole lot of activities going around, and it was a large scale activity. It was one of its kind there in Nigeria, and everybody that wasn't there wanted to be a part of it. So what are we talking about? At the end of the day, after having that large scale activity, it was not the end. Don't forget, it is not about the moment. It is about how you are able to now extend it. So even then, it was packed for content. We used it for social engagement. And then even after that, it became an ingredient for storytelling for long-term tied around the brand. So yes, these activities, large-scale activities, there are opportunities for them, but it must be with purpose and it must be unmatched in a way we're able to create like moments that tie with the people. So, I mean, using Nigeria, for example, we respond to things that come with energy, things that come with a lot of spectacle, and that is shared moments. Why is the brand that leveraged on the boy movement in the East? Why is it a big brand? It leveraged on something that is tied to the people. It leveraged on their nuances. It leveraged on storytelling. It leveraged on the boy motion or movement that is something that they understand and they key into. So the idea behind large scale activities is how we're able to scale them and extend them beyond the moments, such that we take it from memories that have connected, we take it from emotions that have connected with them at that point, and it becomes memories that become a lasting impression for the consumer. That's it.
Oh, I think Oghale went up for a minute or a second.
Okay.
But she should
I
be
thought
back.
I was the
But
one
that
that got lost.
no. That was quite insightful, and I love the badge conversation actually. Hopefully she comes back and takes up more of the conversations. But I love the badge conversations and how you actually spoke to that experience as it was. I think I would ask a question because this is something that has been in my head for a while. At what point do we actually, and I think I would direct this question quickly to Oyindamola before Oghale comes back, because I don't intend to take over her show. Yeah, it's it's her show. Looking at how we've had SS startups, I'm going beyond the multinationals now conversations, SS startups, and you see a lot of, and I think Matt also talked about that. And being one that has worked in both the client and the agency side, I tell you for a fact that I feel marketing is being pushed to just being a promotions arm of and communications arms of the organization. And this is because the people that have the loudest voices have no idea what it is, right? And then you have to sell to the CFO, sell to the CEO, sell to the COO, why marketing should even be part of the product development, conversation, even before you think of developing product, and that the product should be an expression of the brand. Please, as a creative storyteller, right? What's your take on this, and how do you think we can, as marketing professionals, can actually better express our voices in this conversation?
I mean, it's a struggle, right? And I think it is pan everywhere. I'm sure Matt also has his fair share of experience, in this regard. And, I think we just would not stop speaking out. There was something you mentioned earlier, about how even at the C-suite level, I would even say not even before you get to the C-suite, right? Even as a rookie copywriter, a rookie strategist, you need to always fight for the audience, right? You need to always fight for the audience, because I tell the people that I tutor design thinking, and I tell them, I said, you know what? I said, the audience is waiting on you. You are their hero. I told them to imagine that they had imaginary capes, right? Because you are the voice when nobody's even thinking about the audience, they're just thinking about the return on investment, right? And one thing that's very critical is to make sure that when those should I say products are being put together, you need to always ask yourself. I mean, I had my moments, and the marketers, the brand owners, they know me. I will ask us, okay, so why should they buy this plan, for example? You are saying, okay, why is it different from what so and so people are pushing? And they say, no, it's the same thing, or that we just need to look. No, I disagree. We need to look for something to add. So that way, creativity now helps you to look for other avenues to just give your audience something extra, right? Because they're not looking out for more content. They're looking for connection, right? So you need to look for buckets. You need to fight through the clutter of the C-suite guys that are saying, oh, I just want to see the numbers, make my logo bigger and all that. You need to be the voice for the audience. You need to be the one championing their cause. You need to be the one championing why it will matter for them. And I think it's also in how you flesh out your creative strategy, for example, because you find out that by the time you follow creative strategy, I think Mark touched on it beautifully well when he mentioned that, look, once you get your strategy right, it's like you're going on a trip and then you have the wrong map. You can arrive where you want to arrive at, right? So the strategy definitely needs to have the audience at the core, right? But balance it out with also the needs of your stakeholders, because they also need to make money, right? I mean, that's why they are coming to say they want to sell stuff in the first place. And I love the example Matt shared about the bag, right? And the knapsacks. Because there's nothing that tells you this knapsack can keep your stuff safe than that very outlandish experiment. I'm sure there were probably people that were a bit worried in the room when that idea was being shared. But guess what that would have done? If the knapsacks probably weren't up to par, they would have gone back to redesigning to make sure that, look, I mean, we need to put our money where our mouth is. We cannot go out and with this substandard product, you know. So I think it's just making sure that as creative chaperons, right, and even as marketeers, right, we always stand for what's in it for the audience. Fine, yes, this is what is in it for you as my client, right, as the brand. You make your money, don't worry, we can work that out. That's why we're here to create. But what will make them matter? What would make it matter to the audience? Because connection is key. Connection is everything.
Thank you so much. Oghale, I didn't take your show. I just had to ask a quick question before you come back. Okay. So yeah, back to you.
Absolutely. Connection is key. Thank you so much. We have another break. Should we comment on that break before we continue? All right. All right. So let's comment on that break. See you after.
Okay.
Africa is more than a place. It's a force, a rhythm, a story unfolding beyond borders. From the threads of tradition to the pulse of innovation, African Fusion Fest is where culture meets creativity, where Africa connects with the world. Last year, we set the stage. We brought together visionaries, creators, and change makers as we unveiled Africa. In 2025, the world shall gather at Scandic Victorian Tower, Stockholm, to see Africa in 360 degrees as we go further. Beyond borders, African Fusion Fest 2025. Experience Africa's influence across fashion, film, music, esports, and business. Stockholm, June 2025. African Fusion Fest. Beyond borders.
Here it is, got it now. Here it is, got it now. African Fusion.
Good to have you back. Thank you so much. If you just joined us, it's still the Brand and Tech series. We're having conversations around marketing in an attention-scarce world. The conversation has been interesting, has been a lot of insight has emerged so far from this conversation regarding how to engage with the consumer effectively to get the desired results. The question I'm asking next is directed to Aizehi. And I know you're one who has worked in the experiential, sector. You are someone who has a bit of interest in tech and brand and tech series. So I'd like you to speak to us about a project where you had to rethink everything to win consumer attention, and what did it teach you?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one. I would have to go back to my experiential marketing days. And I think there's something with experiences and badges in this side of the world, having something floating on water, right? Okay. That being said, I think I'll take us to a few years ago, I think 2 years ago. Yeah, or 3 years ago. Yeah. NBA, Hennessy, Spirit, um, Spirit of the, I've forgotten the name of that campaign. Spirit of the, does anybody know that campaign? NBA and Hennessy,
NBA.
Spirit of the something, yeah, campaign. I can't remember the name of the campaign though. Yeah, but it was exciting because while we're crafting the strategy for that campaign, that the planning took over 6 months actually. Uh, what we did was we wanted to make a mark. It was a sporting brand coming, trying to create partnership with a high-end luxury brand, right? Lifestyle brand like Hennessy, both global brands, and it was a global campaign. And so we wanted to, they wanted to launch in Africa. It was a three-phased campaign. Right. So the question was, how do we then make a market and then make a statement to establish the fact that these guys are already here? And so we thought to place a basketball court on water, right? And where else are you going to make that happen than Lekki? You know, and it was exciting to have that there, the whole experience and naming the whole flow was a 3-pointer. I think the thinking was, how do we get their attention from the experience, from getting to know about this through the whole flow of even considering the brand and making a statement that they are here, and it was very, very exciting to see that experience actually got us some good awards within the industry, the EXMAN award. Yeah. And TT would know that, considering the fact that the EXMAN award is coming very soon. I think we got two very good awards there, and it made the statement that we needed to make. I think over 3 million mentions across 3 countries in Africa, stuff like that. So it was good with the metrics, but got the attention that we needed because it was the first. Yeah, and funny enough, I think a month or two before that campaign went live, something similar happened, elsewhere. I think it was in Egypt or so, where they had like a lawn tennis, and we're like, oh God, these guys will think we stole this from them, but that's the beauty of it. But we got the consumer at the forefront, creating a lovely experience for all of them, and the capability was also beautiful. At the time, I think Oghale is off again, and I had to take up the conversation. Okay, now talking about that and leveraging elements of culture, I think I should ask the next question to Oyindamola again. Sorry about that, Oyindamola. So there's something about culture and storytelling, right? And attention, actually grabbing attention. How do you marry all of this, especially in these times where you have, goals and multiple tabs? How do you marry all of this to retain the attention of these consumers?
I think it's just about understanding your mediums, right? I mean, we know definitely that your storytelling should be hinged in human truths, right? It should be born out of human truth, right? And then when it's born out of human truth, really understanding different habits, right? That your consumers or your audience, the habits that they have online, for example, the habits that they have offline, for example. Because one thing we do, right, at times over here in these climes is, you just have one TVC and that's what you put on social media. Don't make it a reel, make it long, and it just wonks everything up, right? And if you say it this way on a billboard, how are you going to say it digitally, right? And it's just making sure that, look, whatever your big idea is liquid and linked in the sense that it can shape shift, right, depending on the medium or the platform that you want to place it on. So I think it's just being very cautious and plan all that, map it all out, right? So that when you get to the different gods, the offering to bring, in quotes, right? The offering to bring. You don't just come and you're saying, oh, this is the campaign, and you're just cascading. No, you need to give each platform its own unique requirements, each user his or her own unique experience, right? So that way it's more resonant, right, to them.
Thank you so much. I love something you said about making it fluid, and there was something you said again, fluid and something.
Liquid and linked.
I can't remember. Liquid
Yeah.
and linked. That was so beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And talking about liquid and linked, Matt, what excites you the most about how brands are evolving in today's attention deficit economy?
Well, I think it's forcing us to be more creative, like all the examples that you have kind of put forward as on our discussion so far, because we need to connect to other humans, right? We need ideas that are activated, that are unusual, right? And that's why I think marketers have a lot to give businesses. Like AI cannot come up with the thinking, at least at the moment, that we've been talking about, right? The way that humans respond to things, the way that we can craft concepts that link all of these things together is not something that the robots are going to do anytime soon. So that's the good news, and that's what excites me most. I actually think that AI will have a part to play in terms of execution and in terms of the actual kind of the tools, if you like, to get the message out. But the actual thinking, the actual thought, the strategic intent, that's where we've really got to play the part. And as our panelists have said, we've got to champion the consumer. We've got to understand them, their needs, their aspirations. We've got to put ourselves in their shoes. We've got to think about, well, the value exchange, like why would they sit there and watch one of our adverts, right? And that's the biggest question that I think we need to start thinking about. It's not just about selling the product. It's about thinking bigger than the product, the whole concept that surrounds around the product, the big idea, as we like to call it, that we've mentioned. So that's my kind of view there.
Yeah. So final questions, I think. Auntie T, the last question: do you believe that we still have a place for large-scale activations in today's world? Do you think there's still a place for?
That's where I talked about the badge. Yes, we do. I did answer that. Yes, we do.
We have a lot of startups coming up, and most of these guys don't even have the funding for that. We have a lot of agencies still craving for the very minute.
So let me give you an example. You talked about startups and all that. That video, I purposely used that video that we shared. That video is something that we've done now for the past 3 years. It's celebrating the t-shirt I'm even wearing now is try they stay happy. For the past 3 years, we've celebrated World Happiness Day without any sponsorship or anything. And from the first year, it translated into what we call love on the streets. And why did we start that? The idea behind that was, look, you know what? And that's going back to this not small startups not having this marketing. If you don't start doing something, you will not do it. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Now, I have mentees, young business mentees that I do with some companies who send them to me for marketing communications mentorship. And the truth about it is, what I say to them is, as little as you, for instance, let me use an example of the girl that says she does, what does she call it? I forgot what she calls it. And I said, do you have a brand book for your own business? Do you understand what branding actually is? So if you have your own, you say you're a brand marketing, I've forgotten what she called it. But I said, okay, you as a brand, what do you have as a brand? Let that even be your first starting point to selling what you do. So if, for instance, you come to Oyin and say, Oyin, you have a hairdressing salon, or I've seen your brand online, for instance, I noticed that the font that you use to do this communication is different from the fonts that you use for that communication. I want to help you streamline. I want to, look, this is an example of something that we have done for ourselves. Do you even have that as a starting point? You understand? Then you are doing communication even as a small business. Let's assume the only medium that you have is social media. How well are you leveraging social media? Some years ago, somebody that was not even a brand marketing strategy started all this dancing and carrying your goods on your head. What was that person doing? the person understood the fact that there's a lot going on in people's minds. They need to cut through the clutter. Now, if people see a robust person dancing and carrying stuff on their head, they will stop. What's this person talking about? And that was cutting through the clutter at that point. Whether or not you like it, that particular mode of marketing has translated to such that we even have filmmakers now getting everybody dancing. Now, that particular dancing has even started a conversation where people are saying, wait, sir, is that the only means or mode of communicating? Do you get? So regardless of whether or not you have a marketing budget, you even have to start from somewhere, identifying what you want to communicate first off. Who do you want to communicate to and why? When you now even identify that, you now start to think of where will I meet those people? Where will I target those people? I will go back to the example of Lot. When we did the first one, we went into a community. We went to give them food. We gave different food stuff, packaged and all of that for over 1,000 people. When we did the second one, we looked at it and said, that was where it became Lot. And we said, who are we talking to? We then went into schools, to go and speak to young people who are going out there developing to be human beings. Because again, we found out that what is even going on in the world self, everybody is becoming a narcissist. People don't even know how to relate with the other person. So we decided to do that. Now this year, what we did, in light of again being aware of what's going on in the world, we went into a very low area and we were giving them, I don't know if you saw those cards, but it wasn't only the cards was smile, life not too hard, different things. But even with that, we enveloped monies and we gave to them, because at the end of the day, what's the problem of people? They are hungry. Everybody wants to smile. Everybody will smile. But when one woman, she's not high, but a woman different from those other people, I said to her, would you like a card? She said, you go make me happy. I mean, there was something she said. And I said, yes. And she looked at me and she looked at the people recording and she went to go and meet them and they gave her the envelope. And the next thing was, I don't know if it was in that video, she came, she hugged me, she almost tripped me. You understand? So at the end of the day, regardless of when Matt talked about strategy, the strategy doesn't have to be something that is highfalutin and all of that. It has to be your understanding of whom your target consumer is. And it has to be the quick understanding of, do you know what? The people I'm even talking to, where are they? Are they in the newspaper? They are not in the newspaper, so you won't use your money to do newspaper. Are they online? Yes. So that means social media. Okay, what can I do, even if it is small, to start to get myself seen on social media? That's what it is. But at the end of the day, you even have to think of the fact that you want to communicate to people to see your brand or product, not just your family and friends, who are the ones that are following you because they know you and because they know that you have a business. So even if it is 5,000, even start and know that, okay, I need to spend money to get money, whether or not we like it. So you actually have to start from somewhere. It is very, very important.
Thank you so much, Mom. Thank you so much. Oyindamola, final words so that we can wrap up.
I mean, just to chime in, thank you so much, Aizehi. Just to chime in on what Madam Tolulope elaborated on, I think that, your question was if large scale experiential is something of the past, especially in this era of lots of small businesses. I think that it is even now that it can become what I'll call a Voltron, right? If these brands or the agencies that manage them tap into the power of collaboration. Collaboration is also a very palpable currency for experiential, right? So looking at those who have, interests that you can leverage on as a brand. Say, for example, what can an Uber and a telco, okay, now I'm going large scale, let me go small scale. Say maybe you sell food, right? How can you partner with a fashion person, to say that, look, I want a lot of people to come to my stand, right, or to my store, but I can't do this alone. I can't pay Madam Tolulope a fees, right? What can we do together to make sure that, yes, as people are coming to buy my food, they are also getting some discounts off your beautiful fashion pieces? Okay, who else can we call? Okay, there's this guy that does music, he does music and all that. Can he come and also, maybe he's performing while people are, watching or shopping, right? So it's just really tapping into the power of collaboration. And I would use the example of Niger Brand Chick, for example. She's someone that, in fact, she has mastered that art of collaboration, right? She has mastered the art of collaboration. I think that she's a very beautiful case study when it comes to how to just scale, right, as a small business, when it comes to leveraging people rather than being intimidated by this competition, right? How can you collaborate with them to make something big and everybody takes something home at the end of the day? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Oyindamola. I think we'll be closing out with, I would first of all appreciate you myself, but I have with me the executive partner for a one company, Aizehi. She's currently in Sweden, and she says she's having difficulties with her video. So she will come up and just give us closing remarks while we wrap up. Personally, I say thank you so much, Auntie T and Damola. Thank you so much, moms, for coming on. Aizehi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Oyindamola, Madam Tolulope. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm sorry, I have a toddler that plays with my laptop. I don't know why he has pressed. Now the video is not coming on. I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm seeing your beautiful faces, and I would have loved to let this come on, but I mean, it's not. I would like to say thank you to you guys. I mean, thank you for your energy, the ideas, your expertise, to make this series just more informative and inspiring than we know. I mean, so there's some things said that, I mean, I was just shaking my head. This is the reality, but we fail to acknowledge that this is the reality, and then we just move away from it. Like Madam Tolulope said, I mean, the dancing part of the video, unfortunately, they have been selling, they have been getting away with it. But is that the right way to go? No. And then you see people selling wigs and all of that, and the only thing they show is maybe their body and all of that, and people just fall in line, and it works for you now, it works for you in the next 1 year. Will it work forever? I mean, are you then going to come up with a new strategy? What is it sustainable? Those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves that people are not asking. And again, I won't blame those set of people, because they're not an expert in this area. So are we, what right messages are we supposed to put outside for them to be able to do it right? Or how do they come to us, approach us, to be able to show them the right way, or to tell them this is the marketing strategy that works for your brand? You have to tailor it to the right set of people. But yes, I don't know how we're going to elaborate that, talk more about that, have conversations, inspiring conversations like this that will enlighten those set of people, indirectly or directly. We realize even now that in marketing, mothers, children are taking a very huge part in communication, and that way. So I get home and my son is saying something, and I'm like, oh, really? I don't know about it. That's because they're targeting those set of items, and then it's going to the right set of people. Instead of mothers influencing the decisions of the children, they can then take decisions themselves, or tell you their opinions, and then you look at it in that light, not being forced to do what they're not supposed to do. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you for sharing your vision and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in tech and marketing. And to all the attendees, we're grateful for your time and curiosity. We need to keep the momentum going. We need to connect, collaborate, and continue to have conversation on all social media platforms. I don't know how we're going to, I mean, everybody has gone towards the side now. Thank God for that. So we still have to do our conventional marketing as well, whether to do cards and all of that, to drop in shops and stores and all of that, to enlighten different set of people. I'm so grateful I was part of this session. I'm sure every other person is grateful. Thank you, Itua, for bringing everybody together. and we would love to have you again. You know, even if it's to just do like notes different weeks or different months to be able to drive the things that we're driving and make it go far beyond how we expect it to go.
Thank you so much, Adeife. Now you guys understand why she's actually who she is. Thank you so much. I think the physical event is something that is long overdue, and we should have that before the end of the year. By God's grace, God willing, God permits us to make it happen. Thank you so much,
I'm
everyone
sorry,
that joined
I
in.
forgot to mention.
Yes,
You know,
please.
one of the things that we do well in this part is creating mentorship programming. I mean, Madam Tolulope, I would love to be your mentor. Let me start shooting my shot. Itua, please don't. You know, so
No worries.
the
We have
marketing and tech
you.
have been a success over time. We've explored sessions from innovation, strategy, and creativity. I mean, but as a
Yeah.
marketing expert, we don't know everything all. So please, I will be sliding into your LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
She literally leveraged what we just said about attention. She has your attention and she really call to action. I want to be your mentee. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Do have a wonderful time.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.